The Chronicles of the Bermuda Triangle.
You know, it's a question that has totally captivated minds for generations. What does the recorded history actually tell us versus what we think we know? I mean, when you hear the words Bermuda Triangle, your mind probably jumps straight to, vanishing airplanes, phantom ships, and wild conspiracy theories. But today, we're taking all of that popular legend and pushing it entirely to the side. We're going to make a journey from mystery to clarity, looking exclusively at the strict, factual bounds of documented history. Let's see what happens when we literally strip away the rumors and just focus our attention on the actual text on the page. Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, The Chronicles Revealed, where we're examining the primary source document,
Excerpts from Chronicles of the Bermuda Triangle. Wow. Now, that title carries a very specific weight to it. It really acts as our absolute anchor. In this explainer, we aren't pulling from outside lore or, modern Hollywood adaptations. Our entire boundary of authority is defined by this exact source document. It promises a chronicle, a deliberate, formal record of events.
And honestly, that brings us perfectly to our methodology. Our analysis rests entirely on the foundational history documented in this specific text. We're taking a super minimalist, highly disciplined approach today. Think of us as objective historians locked in a quiet archive room. We just can't let outside noise pollute our understanding. Basically, if it's not explicitly written in the source excerpts we have right in front of us, we aren't treating it as part of our factual record. This deliberate constraint is really what makes our learning here so incredibly focused and efficient.
Moving right along to Section 2, Defining the Triangle, which sets a strictly historical parameter. Now, what's really fascinating about this is how it completely reframes our perspective. We aren't defining the Bermuda Triangle as some paranormal hot zone or dimensional gateway. Instead, we're defining it in a strictly historical context. It is simply the specific geographic and cultural subject matter whose past events are deliberately cataloged within the Chronicles source excerpts. Our text treats the phrase History of Bermuda Triangle not as some crazy myth to be busted, but as a formal subject of history to be meticulously recorded.
So let's jump to Section 3, our historical timeline, tracing the records of the triangle.
Let's move to this and see how this historical record unfolds, because it builds kind of like a giant puzzle. We start on the left with the past era. This represents the raw, unrecorded events actually occurring in the geographic region over decades, maybe even centuries. Then an absolutely crucial shift happens during the recording era, right there in the middle. This is the exact moment when those raw events undergo the formulation into the documented history of Bermuda Triangle, as noted in our chronicles. And finally, we arrive at present day, April 2026, which is right now. This is our objective analysis of these exact, distilled text excerpts. It's just a totally fascinating journey from pure occurrence to written record, and finally to modern analysis.
Here we capture the perfect friction surrounding this whole topic. Look at Side A, unverified early myths and sensationalized rumors. I mean, that's the noise, right? That's what crowds the internet and fills up all those cheap paperbacks. But look at Side B, the grounded history of Bermuda Triangle as explicitly noted in our source excerpts. In this explainer, we're making a very deliberate choice to stick purely to Side B. By entirely ignoring the sensationalism of Side A, we just gain this immense historical clarity. We are anchoring ourselves to the written word and the written word alone.
So, the crucial point boils down to this singular number, 1. We're relying on one singular hyper-focused perspective to understand the phenomenon. Just one source. The literal text that states History of Bermuda Triangle right from the Chronicles. By limiting ourselves to this one document, we completely strip away all the wild contradictions of pop culture and find a pure, unadulterated starting point for historical truth.
That brings us to Section 4, Legacy of the History. Let's distill down our source material. Okay, let's quickly review our core takeaways from the text. First, the text explicitly establishes the very existence of the document titled Chronicles of the Bermuda Triangle. Second, it proves that the primary focus of these excerpts is definitively the history of Bermuda Triangle. And third, the source frames the entire region through a lens of historical record rather than pure myth. And this brilliantly illustrates how a tight focus on actual source material can completely ground a legendary topic in reality. When you look exclusively at the text, the ghost stories just vanish, and literally only the history remains.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to ponder. How does the way we document history fundamentally change the way we remember a mystery? I mean, the text we examined today was extremely precise, yet it totally shifted our entire paradigm from paranormal folklore to a formally documented history of Bermuda Triangle. It really goes to show that the pen is incredibly powerful in shaping human memory. So think about that the next time you hear a legendary tale. Just stop and ask yourself, what does the actual document say?
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.